Josh, you got me back there? All righty. So, my name is Mark Schutz. My wife Lisa and I have been attending here for probably about 3 years, maybe just a bit more than that. We're new to this area and moved here from Antioch, and we're blessed to be here because they're kind of like opposite ends of the poles there. And we like this end better. First off, I want to say, thank you, Derek, for inviting me, putting me in that group with the young men that you were talking about. I like that. Well, all right. And also, I was really on the fence about doing this. I've spoken to a few people here and there, 2 at a time, 3, maybe something like that, about my testimony and stuff. And that was fine, but I really don't like talking to big crowds and things like that, but we'll get through it. I got a lot of notes, and I'm going to do this sort of in a starting off way back when, in caveman times when I was brought up, and then moving to the future and including along the way various times that I saw God in my life and felt Him working on me, because it was a real process. Yeah. So early on, my parents were military people. My dad was a Navy officer, and my mom was a homemaker. They had 2 children prior to me, so I've got an older sister and an older brother, and then I came along. And I found out later that this was not a planned pregnancy, which a lot of them weren't back then, but they particularly didn't want a baby at this time. They were overseas at the time, down in Cuba, and really enjoying it down there because it was kind of like an island paradise at the time. Wasn't the Cuba that it is now. And then Mom got pregnant with me, and that kind of messed up a bunch of their plans. So she was forced to move back to Massachusetts with her family, and had me there. Had to bring the other kids along, of course, and leave my dad down in Cuba by himself. And that was just the beginning of it. So I know it's hard to believe, seeing what a big, robust specimen that I am now, but I was very small for my term. I was full term, but really small, and weighed 4 pounds and change. And because even though I was healthy, they followed rules back then, and I had to be in the incubator for 3 weeks. So my parents had no contact with me at all. They wouldn't let them touch me, nothing, for the first 3 weeks. So then when they brought me out, I was full done then, or whatever, I don't know. And they allowed me to go home with my mom and everything. So then Dad caught up with us like in Pensacola, which was his next stop. So as you can imagine, being career military, we were 2 years, various places all up and down the East Coast. Some of them over again because of his training and stuff like that. So I came from, I think it was like a normal family until I look back on the way others were. My parents were really strict disciplinarians, and that was kind of common then, but it got to be like over the top. My mom had some issues that didn't get resolved because people just didn't talk about mental health issues and stuff like that back in the day, and it made her, Dad was leaving all the time and going to do different things as a Navy pilot, and she was left at home with, at the end, 5 kids. So I was in the middle of that, and it sort of broke us off into sections. My older brother and sister were set. My younger 2 were the 2 little kids, and that was me in the middle all by myself. So it was just kind of weird. I felt something was going on, but didn't know what it was, but that's just how it went. Like I said, my mom was really strict with us because things were out of control, and she was just always trying to settle it down, and there was a lot of spankings involved. No real rationale for it, and no real discussion of what you're doing. It was just somebody made a noise, everybody getting whacked. So made it real confusing growing up. I continued, and this really set off in me. I didn't find out till I was an adult, but I had PTSD from all the getting whacked stuff. It made me really afraid, anxious in different kind of environments. So my defense to this was try to control all my environments. I tried to control school. I tried to control where we were living. That didn't work out good because we moved every 2 years. Had to fit into a new school every 2 years, and was always the smallest kid in my class, boys and girls included, all the way through high school. Back in the day when I was in school, you didn't have this stuff called virtual bullying or something like that. It was real guys there that just beat you up. So, yeah. I know some of you are close to my age and understand that, but so I made a really good target for other people, other guys to practice on. You know, I'll get past him, and then so it was just kind of a mess like that. But it just played into my what became my personality and stuff like that. And I tried to blend in with everybody and make friends with people and stuff like that, and in order not to get beat up so much. But I will say this as a saving grace. My older brother and I were really close because we shared a room until I was 18. And he really tried to protect me and stuff. But he was older and trying to do his stuff, at a certain point. So, but we went to church and everything. However, probably not the best church system, because all it was I went to an Episcopal church, and we went to a number of them, up there, down in Florida, back up in Virginia, wherever. We always found one, but it wasn't like this. And one of the things I wanted to say was, for people who are here who haven't had a different experience or something like that, most churches is not like this. Ours, whether they were big churches, small churches, it didn't really matter. It was just a pre-scripted sermon that they would read. You could count on it, like if you were there for several years, every week of every month was out of a book planned, and the priest, that's what he would talk about. He had the only Bible in the church, and nobody had one or brought one. You might have a family Bible at home, but nobody was really studying from them or anything like that. And then he would do the thing, and everybody would pretend like, it's great, and then everybody go home and be themselves again. So it really, I never felt God there per se. I never really heard messages. I started hearing later on in life when I was a young adult or something like that, having a relationship with Jesus and stuff like that. And I was like, it's so foreign to me. I don't even know what that means. Because in our home, even though we were church people and went every Sunday and did the special services and all this kind of stuff, it ended when you got out that door. My parents didn't talk about any of the big issues of life that come up, growing up, getting jobs, having girlfriends, none of that, nothing. It was just behave, shut up, whatever, But that's how that went until, I got into school, and I did fairly well in school for quite a while. Things started changing when I was about 15 years old, and we had all these rules. Like my dad, and my mom as well, but my dad's military background and my mom's strictness, they had rules for everything. I mean, it was just like the church. We almost mimicked what the practice was there. So, had all these rules, was following them, was in scouts, was working with what they called acolytes at the church that served, helped the priests and everything, serve everything and do all that kind of stuff. Everything seemed okay. Then somebody who I really loved and trusted, one of my older siblings, introduced me to marijuana around 15 years old. I was like, no, I've heard all the don't do drugs, don't drink, and side note, my dad was a functional alcoholic at the time. So we didn't have no reason for not doing drugs or drinking or anything like that, what it would do, what it could do to you, just don't do it. So when somebody I loved and trusted told me, oh, it's fine, they just don't want you to have fun or something like that, I tried it. At first, didn't really think nothing about it. As time went on, to 16, 17, I wasn't fitting in as well in school. I was, bullied a lot, stuffed in lockers a lot, just all kinds of things. I was this tall and probably weighed 60 or 70 pounds or something like that. There weren't no girls interested in going out on dates with me. So I did find a group that I could fit into real easy because I had really low standards, and that was the potheads. So now I had a new club, and I got right in with them. So unfortunately, clung on to that and my new group and everything, and did that for the next couple of years. I got through high school and graduated and everything, but not, no big banners or anything about that. And didn't know what to do, so I figured I'm going to go in the Navy, and try that. They let me in. Not the highest standards either, but they let me in. And while in the times that, of course, you can't drink and do drugs and stuff like that when you're in boot camp and all that kind of stuff. So I was sober again and functioning good and did really well. They had some athletic stuff and everything, got on the obstacle course team, and we won first place for that and everything, and I was really kind of enjoying it. But this was the first time and I went to a church service there just because somebody said, if on Sundays you don't have to stay in the barracks and work if you go to the church service. And I was like, I really like church. I thought it was a bunch of hypocrites at the Episcopal church that I went to, but a day off from this other stuff, I'll take it. So I went. Well, it was great. It was a bunch of young guys playing what sounded like modern contemporary music, only you had God words and stuff in it, and everybody was nice and friendly, and I was like, this is cool. So on Sundays through boot camp, I went there, and of course I was clean and straight and everything, because you can't have anything there, and that was probably the best I had felt in years. I had other guys there going through the same thing. We could sympathize with each other and all that kind of stuff. No parents to bug us. Well, you had a guy there with a whip in his hand, but it was okay. But I really felt like I was enjoying that and was going to do good in the military. Well, got out to my next place, went to school. I was a hospital corpsman. Got that training and everything. That went well again, for the most part, outside of a beer here and there. There wasn't a whole lot of that other activity going on. So I felt good, and I thought, oh, this is what the Navy's going to be like, Went on to my next duty station. It's a big city, Washington, D.C., at Bethesda, at the hospital there. It's everywhere. I mean, anything and everywhere. So I got sucked right into it again. And that started a long process of 7 or 8 years of over drinking, drug use, doing just whatever. I didn't feel like I had any close friends outside of the guys that were doing some of this stuff, and even that wasn't enough because I didn't enjoy drinking and doing all this other stuff, but I just felt like it was the only way I would have kinship with anybody, and it was bad. I became a competitive drinker and user. I had to be the guy at the party that, oh, I'll really impress them if I can drink more of this, if I can swallow more of that, if I can smoke more of that. It was terrible. I hated it. I hated myself doing it. I felt like I had lost that young person I was when I was 13, 14, 15 years old, when I was excelling at things and feeling good about myself and being a productive person, but I didn't see any other option for myself. So I didn't have God in my life. Nobody there that I was working with talked about God. It was just bad. After I got out of the service, I moved here to Tennessee because I had some of my family members here. I'm not sure. I think my parents were living here at the time, and maybe one of my siblings or something. So I came here to try it, and I really liked Tennessee. I'd always lived on the coast, and I thought I'd always have to live on the coast because that's where you live. But I got here, and I was like, this is nice, and it was friendly and everything, too. And the one example that I can give you, because I'd never seen a place like this, my brother-in-law told me, oh, you need to go down to see Printer's Alley and the music places and stuff like that. And I thought, oh, okay, I'll do that. And this was like early 80s. So Nashville was a town still, not a... Yeah, yeah, paddled up there. So I drove down to town and everything and started walking around, and there really was not many people out on the streets, and it wasn't busy and, congested or anything. And as I'm walking around, people are driving by, waving, beeping, and I'm like, what's happening? I don't know. I don't know them. And then, they'd walk right by you and say hi or something, how you doing? And I'm like, we don't talk to strangers because, well, where I came from, if you talk to a stranger, they're taking your wallet. There is no, we're neighbors or something. So we just, walk by like that, and hope to not get hit or something. So I went back and talked to him, and I said, well, I was downtown. People were waving at me like they knew me from the cars and stuff. He goes, people are friendly here. I said, what are you, nuts? I said, what? No. And he was like, I'm telling you, that's, because he was a local, that's how it is here. And I was like, wow, this is okay, maybe make some friends. So I stayed for a while and worked for a couple of years in retail and everything. Still, my parents were going to church and stuff, but they were going to the Episcopal church still. And I thought, I know I'm not interested in that. Just wasn't interested in God at all, because I just really didn't see him being interested in me. Why would he, So I did that for a little while and everything, and then decided I was going to go back to college and go to nursing school and all that. And I signed up for all that, started that. The first year, I still was kind of partying on the side and stuff, but not too crazy, because I had a lot of work to do and everything. I'd been out of school for 6 years and not spending my time wisely, so it was kind of hard to get back into the college mode, but made it pretty much through without any trouble. Lisa and I actually worked at a retail store at the same time, and later the next year we were dating and that kind of thing. But when I say that, I was broke, busy as all get. I worked part-time, sometimes evening shift after school, sometimes on my day that I wasn't in classes, sometimes weekends. If I had a summer break or a week off somewhere, I was with one of my brother's construction crews doing what I had to do everything I could to make money, because I was commuting from Hermitage to Murfreesboro and I had to pay for gas for all of that, plus, tuition and books and food and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I was busy. So, if we went on a rare date, Lisa had to pay for us to go out to eat. Because, like I said, I had no money. But anyway, we started that, and it was still real busy, and we continued dating and go to school the next year and all that kind of stuff. Ended up, eloping and getting married in the middle of the semester. And we had a couple of close friends and siblings that we told, but no parents or anything. So we're married and, living. It's funny. Our parents lived like a mile apart, maybe, in the neighborhood. And I would just bounce back and forth between, staying at my parents' house. I will say this, my mother-in-law, who I love, is very gracious, and she would even let me come over to the house, take a nap in the bed for a couple of hours, send Lisa in to wake me up and drag me out there in a semi-coma to eat dinner, and then go off to work or back to school or whatever I was doing. It was so confusing. I didn't know night from day or where I was half the time, but it was very kind of them to treat me that nice. And of course, at that time, she still didn't know we were married. But yes, she was much younger than me, and I don't know how I got away with it, but here we are. So still during all this time. Now, I had some classmates and stuff that would talk about, they were in like regular churches and stuff, and they would say things, but it concerned me at that time because all of our classes were biology, chemistry, physics, health sciences, medication for, all this kind of stuff. And I'm sitting there, how are you sitting in a biology class seeing how things are made and studying how evolution produced this, and then we ended up with this. And you're talking about these mystical people like God and Jesus and stuff like that. I mean, I knew all the stories from the Bible because they would talk about them at Sunday school and everything over the years, but I didn't think that was, I thought they was just stories, So, but, it was kind of planting a seed for me. I just didn't realize it at the time. But again, at this time, I was feeling much better as a person because I was clean and sober at this time. All I was focusing on was school, trying to get through. It turns out my decision for going to MTSU, it worked out in the end, but I find out afterwards that they had the most demanding nursing program in the Southeast at that time. The year that I graduated, we were the 15th year in a row for 100% passing the nursing boards on the first attempt. So by the time you graduated there, they had already weeded out, the chaff and the weed or whatever, tares, yeah. They had separated that all along the way. So you didn't have to worry about boards if you got to graduation because you were prepared for it. I will tell you an ugly statistic. So we had 12 guys in the class when we started 3 years before. 3 of us graduated. The girls were more like about 50-50 ratio, but us boys got hammered. Yeah. They were really going to make sure that we could pass the board. So I graduated there and got into the workforce. This should have been something big, but I started work at Baptist Hospital. Once you get into the hospital part of it, there wasn't a whole lot of the Baptist part going on that I could see. I mean, this was real adult world out there, and oh my goodness. Um, yeah. It was just, I mean, there was dating this, getting prepped. We got a code. Okay, let's go. Nope. Put on my lipstick because Dr. So-and-so is going to be there. And this kind of, that was the whole thing there. And I was like, wow, that's, okay. I wasn't expecting that, but, but I only worked there a short period of time, and things happened, and I got sick and decided to leave there and go to another little hospital, Donaldson Hospital, where I enjoyed it a lot better. It's now Summit Medical Center, but and I worked there for 36 years. We did move buildings, but technically still for the same place. Did work all over the place, a few years in this area, a few years in that area. For the first 7 or 8 years, and I even hate saying this, but after what I've said so far, who cares? I had developed even almost a dislike for people to bring up talking about God and stuff, or I laughed at it. It was one or the other. Like, you're a fool. Why are you even talking about this kind of stuff? We're in a science-based facility here. Or I would just, I literally laughed at people who would bring it up. I'm like, you're talking like a child or something. There's no such thing. Just get on with life, But, and that went on for a number of years. But some of these people I worked with, for years and really liked them, and everything else about them I was good with, except for this. And then, it was kind of dawning on me, like, maybe there's something to it, but I still wasn't. I had said so much junk about it, and had so much negativity towards it, that I was afraid to change over, even if they were right. I mean, I would look like an idiot now, which maybe they already thought that. I don't know, but it was just really hard. So I can't say that, God necessarily was working on me through them. I'm sure he was, but I didn't see that as a plan. I didn't even know he had plans like that. So that kept on for a number of years, and then on the way home from work one day in 1992 or 1992, I think, maybe. I had ridden my bike. I used to commute to work sometimes, once or twice a week. It was about 11 or 12 miles each way. It wasn't bad, but, ride in there, work 12 hours on your feet in the ICU, get back on that bike and crank it home, It was a little bit of a workout. Well, I got smashed by a drunk driver about a mile from the house. Broke my back, broke my ankle, my pelvis, my hip, my left wrist. And right after impact, while I was floating in the air, which seemed like a long period of time, because, time kind of, your head's a lot faster than the rest of, so you can come up with whole concepts while you're half a second in the air. So I'm up there, and I looked down and I thought, oh, this is how people die, and figured that was going to be me. So I, bounced off the truck, bounced back off the street. People, within less than a minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, one person's at my side, another person's at my side, both one EMT and one nurse. And I'm like, and it's at the strip mall. I'm like, what are the chances of that? So that was, of course, God putting right people in the place at the time. I didn't think of it like that, but, looking back, how else did that happen? So somebody come up to me and said something about they were loading me in the ambulance. Time was like really weird at this. And they said to me, "Oh, did you see that they got a guy?" I said, "They haven't got no guy." I said, "The guy's truck was driving away from me while I was laying on my back there, and I tried to prop myself up a little bit, but it hurt, so I couldn't really see good. But he drove out of the place and took off." And they said, "Oh no, a cop happened to be," here's another one, "a cop happened to be off duty in traffic, saw the whole thing, and immediately followed that guy and called the guys who were working, to help him, and they all chased this guy down and caught him." So there's a lot of coincidences going on which I thought was coincidences, but God was helping out a little bit with that. So I recovered from that and everything, and got back to what I was doing. Didn't really think too much about it. Shortly after that, I know Lisa started going to, she had some friends at work that were talking to her about God and Jesus saving us and all that kind of stuff. And she started going to church here and there with them and trying out some different ones in the neighborhood. I was dead set against it. She kept asking me, "You want to go to church this Sunday?" And I was like, "Nope, they ain't got nothing that I need," And so I didn't go for a while. She kept asking, and finally one week she was going to a church that was kind of in our neighborhood, like a regular non-denominational Christian church, and she seemed to like it, and she said, "Well, this Sunday, it's big attendance Sunday," or something like that. And I thought, I guess I can try it, In the meantime, some other people at work that I knew were, really science-based and stuff too, had been talking to me about it, and my friend Ron Wyatt, who's one of these biblical archaeologists, I guess you would call that. He's one of the first ones to do the tests on the soil and everything for the ark up there in I forget the name of the place. It starts with a D, but it's a big long word over there in Turkey at that site. He was one of the ones that went there and did a lot of investigating and everything there, and gets credit for having really exposed most of the ark. But anyway, he started showing me videos of stuff that he was doing and everything, and I'm like, this guy's a nurse anesthetist. Surely he knows. But he was serious about it, and when I watched the tapes and everything, I was like, well, that's pretty interesting stuff. And so I decided to go with Lisa and went in that church, and I liked everything about it. Great music. The preacher gave a sermon, and it made sound like God was like not just 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, but the stuff that he was saying actually applies to today. And I was like, wow, this is all right. Plus, the building had basketball goals in it, and on certain days you could clear all the chairs out and play full court hoops. I was like, this is like nirvana, man. So anyway, I went and enjoyed it, and then started going, regularly and stuff. And Lisa got baptized a few weeks after that, and then I talked to the pastor and I said, "Now I've been baptized, sprinkled, and then had a confirmation in the Episcopal church." I said, "But none of that really meant anything. Of course, as a baby, you don't know nothing. And even the confirmation thing, you just went through a class and they checked you off on some stuff, and now you were saved." But I didn't feel saved. I didn't feel any different at all. I was just like, I'm glad I'm 12 and now I can take communion with everybody else and act like the big people here. And but I talked to him, and he said, "Well, you can be baptized again, submersion, and that's how we do it, and that's what we think is biblical." And I said, I think I'm ready. I said, "I can't believe this is happening, but I feel like I'm good to go, And so I did. And it felt really good, and I had that big spike that you have when you first get saved and everything, and you're out trying to save lives here and there and do all this stuff. But I didn't do anything like, it was real easy to get into a comfort zone, and that's what I had been seeking for my whole life. I always wanted to try to make the situation comfortable, whether it's my environment, my work, my whatever. I struggled at it, and it almost never worked out, but that's what I was striving for, and this place seemed like it had it. The bad thing with that is I spent the next 15, 18 years, whatever it was, being comfortable there. Never got outside my comfort zone. When they asked people to do stuff, I said, sure. And it was a pretty big-sized congregation. Eventually started, we were maybe 100 people when we started, but I think we had over 1,000 people by the time we left there. And want to set up chairs, you could do that. You want to play music in the band or something, you could do that. I mean, there was a lot of opportunities and stuff, and I just picked the stuff that I really enjoyed doing and never did any of the other stuff. Never really challenged myself as a Christian. Never really was out there talking to people about their salvation. It was almost felt like looking back at it, a big waste of time. I mean, it wasn't good. So until towards the end, we came back. We left for a few years and came back, and I met a guy there, and I'll call him a fisher of men. He was out there grabbing these men and talking to them, telling them what's really happening, telling them what their Christian life is supposed to be like. How do you get in touch with that? How do you get the Spirit into you, allowing the Spirit in you to actually do something instead of just being in neutral all the time? And I was just like, as soon as he started talking to me, I was like, this is what I've been looking for. God just put him in the right place and me at the right time. And we would go on and campouts and stuff like that. Now, this is fun campouts. Friday night, you show up about 9 o'clock at night, you hit the trailhead, you got your full pack and everything. We do 30 miles in about 20 hours, all through the night, and then half of the next day, and get back to base camp about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, eat a big dinner. Yeah, that's real camping. So I did that several times with the group, and the purpose of it was while you're out there hiking and stuff, you're talking to another guy or another two guys or something like that about the things that they're going through in their life and trying to give them answers or try to help them find the answer themselves. And it just was a really good opportunity for men to get together and share and just get a deeper meaning of what Christianity was and what it was supposed to be and how we use this salvation instead of just having a pin on us or some other kind of thing. I mean, it was a good thing. And prior to that, I do know there was a couple of guys and a couple of families in there that were doing kind of big stuff, but I thought they were so weird and so crazy to be stretching themselves out like they're living barely from week to week, having to find a way to purchase food and having to find a way to do this because they've got 4 or 5 other kids living in their home, or they're helping support these other families over here that don't have anything at all, or they're going on mission trips all over the place trying to help. And I thought, you people need to settle down, just live your life and, don't be so crazy. But, as I matured, I realized that that is what our life is supposed to be. You're not living your life if everything you do is comfortable for you. That's not what we're called to be. So it took a lot for me to get there. At this point, I've been a Christian for, 20 years or so, and finally seeing a light. It was, I don't know, I'd call that kind of a ridiculous journey, but, it's not my plan, it's his. But I will say, he had to come at me a number of different times. So I'm just going to check my notes here just a little bit. So, the next big thing after we left that area, and here's the thing. A couple of times people that I really liked, a couple of guys that were in the band with me and that were doing big things, they had ministries outside of the church even. A couple of the other guys that was on the ball team with me or something like that, they'd leave. One of the drummers left. That put me in the one spot instead of the two spot, and now I was being counted on all the time for that. And when they said they were going to this other church, I'm like, how can you find a church better than this? And it just shocked me. And then next thing I know, we were one of the ones that left, and I was like, wow. It allowed me to, still not perfect at it, but it allowed me to see that this little plan in my head is not like the master plan, and I really need to find a way to be more open to what God's will is, what Jesus wants out of me. How do I make this Spirit work? It was tough. So one time, and I'm going to finish up after this, but this was just a few years before I retired, maybe 5 or 6 years before I retired. I had been bouncing back and forth. I worked in surgical services, and they offer all kinds of different areas to work in. I actually worked in the same-day surgery area. I had managed the main post-anesthesia care unit and the endoscopy department at the same time, and bounced back and forth between there. So I had a lot going on. It took a lot of hours, day and night, and I was really busy. So during one fitful night of sleep, I was just being harassed by what turned out to be a spirit talking to me, because it kept bothering me, and now it's like 3 o'clock in the morning and I still can't sleep. And I thought, I've got to quit fighting this and just find out what is going on. So I listened, and here this spirit tells me, after work tomorrow, you go down to the hardware and buy copper pipe and some other parts that you'll need to make metal crosses for people to wear, and you're going to wear it at work. And I was like, whoa, we're not supposed to bring up Christianity or any kind of religion unless a client brings it to us first, and then we can get into that. But I thought, I'll go get the stuff and see. Now, at this time, I'd never soldered anything. Didn't have any of the equipment to do anything like that. So I went and bought the stuff, and I drilled little tiny holes in it, tried to put screws in it. That didn't work. Tried using super glue and JB Weld and stuff like that. That kind of worked, but if you dropped it on the ground, then it break apart. So that wasn't going to be strong enough. So I thought, I've got to go buy a soldering torch, flux, solder. I thought there was one kind. You go to the store, there's 100. So I didn't really know what to get, but I was experimenting. So came home, I thought I could go on YouTube and figure out how to do this in 2 minutes. And I'm thinking, nope. He wants me to work through this and figure this out, because this is my little mission, and he wants me to spend some time in it. So I did it all on my own, learned how to solder, how to cut this pipe, how to put little fancy fittings on it, all this kind of stuff, and started wearing them to work. My customers, my patients, my family members, they're all like, oh, that's a beautiful cross. Where'd you get that cross? Not everybody, but a lot. And I'd say, oh, well, let me tell you how it come about. So I told them, and they were like, oh, that's a great story. That's, I said, how about I give it to you? And they said, oh, no, how much do you want for it? I said, I don't take any money for this. This is, what I'm doing. So I give it to them. I go home making another one. And it's taken me 3 to 5 hours for each cross to go from rough to finished. And I did that for several years and got such a great response from it. I even branched out and started making wooden ones and different kind of things like that. And people come up and ask me, I want one that looks like this or this or this. I started using all different kinds of metal, realized that, aluminum is hard to work with. But everything else was okay. So I did that for quite a while and really enjoyed it and everything. I still do a few of them here and there just when people ask. But I did want to say one thing regarding working in the hospital. And this really made a big impact on me, and it was still right before I got saved. I had the opportunity to work in areas where patients were what we'd call near death, on ventilators, life support and blood pressure medicines, drips, all that kind of stuff. I mean, they're barely hanging in there. I met a gentleman, an older guy. He was still conscious and everything and could talk some, but he was dying, and he knew it. But he's always happy, always smiling. Mark, how you doing? Oh, great. How are you? How you feel? Oh, I'm okay, I'm like, let me ask you. I had to ask him a question. I said, how are you carrying on with this smiling? I'm happy, everything's going good, and you're dying. He had mentioned it. And he was like, well, I know where I'm going. And I'm like, huh? And he was like, he goes, I'm saved. He says, I'm God's property, and when I die, my spirit's going up to heaven. And I was like, well, that is just the oddest statement. I was 30 or 40 years younger than him, and I was thinking, you are got to be crazy, thinking like that. But, he was solid on it, and, never wavered from it. Not long after that, a young man come into the unit, and he was there for months. He had had a drug overdose, which brought him to the hospital. While they were doing CPR on him, open CPR, directly massaging his heart, somebody accidentally pierced his heart. So this meant emergency surgery, emergency everything, and he lingered in the ICU for months, barely alive. The only reason he was alive is because he was just in his 20s, and everything else was strong enough to be able to handle all what was going on. His family was in there all the time. I ridiculed what they were doing. Me and some of the other non-Bible people were, like, oh my gosh. They're playing Christian music 24 hours a day, and they say, when we leave, make sure that next tape goes in, because he's got to hear that, and blah, blah, blah. And we're thinking, he ain't hearing nothing. That man is gone, Any day now, they'll be turning off the vents and everything like that. And you can imagine my disbelief when, like 2 months later, he was being taken to a rehab unit because he had, mostly recovered from all his injuries and stuff. And I was just like, so, just another example of, my plan certainly wasn't So I'm going to close on that, and again, just say, I really appreciate the opportunity to have come up here and shared my salvation and my crazy lifelong path to get to where I where I am. And I just really feel like, I won't say we're going to be coming here forever, because, to be honest with you, when we started coming here, this wasn't the church I was going to shop for. It's down the street. This was Lisa's first pick. And when I came here, the very first week, I told her afterwards, I said, we ain't going nowhere else. I said, this is it. I said, I've never been to a place where you hear the message like this, and the people were so open and honest and inviting and stuff when we got here. I said, yeah. 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 I'll give a PS on that. I still have in my attic at least 2 tents, barely used, sleeping bag, backpack, water filtration system, all that stuff. Okay. So that's all I got, and thanks again for bearing with me.